Hello guys, and welcome to my channel. I'm a new slime anime YouTuber. If you like this content, please consider subscribing and clicking that bell notification icon so I can continue uploading this kind of content. This video is the start of chapter 1 of volume 19 of light novel. So without further ado, let's get started. The place where we transported was extremely frigid, a world of silver. It was as if we had wandered into Guy's castle. I had tried to use the magic transfer circle, but the spell did not work. Therefore, I used spatial transportation to reach the limit of what I could see with my surveillance spell, Argus, and was greeted by a stinging cold air. It was freezing to the core. It must have been that. I was able to nullify the cold, but the fact that I still felt a chill was definitely due to Velzard's influence. There was a presence in the air that made the air tremble, telling me that this was definitely a battlefield. The greatest source of power was coming from the battlefield where Guy and Velzard were facing each other. They had created a deadly space where no one could intervene. So, I'd just leave that part alone. I thought I felt someone looking at me, but I just ignored it. I felt like I had been hit by a wave of anger saying,
"You bastard, you just ignored me."
But it wasn't good to overthink things. I'm just an extra, so it's probably best if I don't intervene. I could feel someone's dismay, but my conclusion remained unshakable. Jumping into a situation that you know is dangerous is not a choice that a wise man should make. On that note, I should find out where I can intervene. The next option is, let's see, it's Diablo. His opponent is Thelario, so let's ignore that one too. Oh well, it's Diablo, so it should be fine to just leave it to him. If he can't handle it, then there's nothing I can do about it.
No, that's not.
You don't understand, Shell-san. I've noticed recently that Diablo's been slacking off whenever I'm watching him. He's probably not aware of it, but it feels like he's not working because he wants to see what I can do.
I see, that makes sense.
It's been quite a while since I last beat Shell-san to the punch. I'm feeling good, but I'll just go ahead and give instructions to everyone.
Leave the outside alone, we're heading for Leon. It looks like there are a few battlefields, so please deal with them as you see fit.
Benimaru, Sae, Ranga and Kimura nodded at my decision. Roughly speaking, this was an emergency. For the time being, I decided that it would be best if we all went together. By the way, was there another battlefield out here? There was. I could sense a thick magical residue near the ground, but my instinctive intuition told me to ignore it. Why was that? Without any reason or evidence, I decided to follow it. Well, now was not the time to be troubled, so I decided to take immediate action. Everyone seemed to have no objection, and we all began moving towards the castle. The visibility was terrible. I was doing my best to activate universal perception, but I couldn't even get a sense of distance. The reason was simple, a Velzard's snowstorm was contaminated with magicules. That's why the natural effects nullification was disabled. As long as we were sensing distance using the reflection of magicules in the atmosphere, everything would become ambiguous if the space was filled with magicules. So, all we could do was to move in the direction where the magicules were shaking. That ended up being the correct answer, and we soon reached Leon's castle. The inside of the castle was better. I was relieved to have my sight back. And so, I looked for signs of battle.
All right, I've detected a sign of Leon. Benimaru and I will head out, so you guys go support the rest of the battlefields.
Understood. I understand.
Leave it to me.
Without any objection to my order, Ranga, Kimura, and Sae moved out. Without even seeing them off, I took Benimaru and activated spatial transportation. In any case, the moment we entered the castle, the signs of battle swelled greatly. A chilling presence. The energy was so intense that it exceeded my current full power, and I decided that this would be dangerous. The scene at the end of the transport was a true race against time. I performed thought acceleration at several 100,000,000 times the speed and tried to read the situation. Laplace and Terror were protecting a woman, led by Yuki, who had summoned up the last of his energy. The woman looked familiar to me. Yuki's secretary, she must have been the possessed form of the demon lord Kazulam. Her name was Kagali, and the last time I saw her, she had been under the control of Lieutenant Kondo. I don't know what had happened to her, but she seemed to have regained her free will. No, the current problem was not that, but rather the gigantic fireball that the enemy was about to unleash. Strengthened by an ultimate skill, its heat and destructive power had been increased to such an extent that it could shatter even the spirit. In other words, it would even destroy the soul. And it had already been unleashed. I would be safe. My void god Azathoth could eat up the power of destruction, so I was well protected against the release. Naturally, Benimaru was also under its influence, so there was no need to worry. However, Yuki and the others, who were exposed to the gigantic fireball and took the direct hit from the front, had already been damaged. Then, they were already.
No. If you eat them with Void God, Azathoth, or
Do it. Before I could even finish listening to the entire explanation, I gave the order. In no time at all, Sila-sen took action. And yet, however, the result was a huge explosion that blew away the castle. Yuki was swallowed up by the light and disappeared. And so did Laplace. The large explosion that distorted space was largely suppressed by my power. However, for the two people who received a direct hit,
I've given you a lot of trouble up until now, but I didn't dislike you, Rimuru-san.
Same here. I'm relieved that you're here now. I leave the rest to you.
I felt like I heard voices speaking. I think it was an auditory hallucination. Yuki and Laplace disappeared without a trace. Certainly, they had always been a pain in the ass. But Yuki was still a fellow countryman that Shizu-sen had entrusted to me. And then there was Laplace, who I thought I could get to know in a way that I couldn't hate him now.
both of them are stubborn, so the possibility of them being alive somewhere is not zero.
There's no need to console me. It's obvious from this situation that it was just a fantasy, but even so, those words brought me back to reality. I thanked Sila-san and changed my mind. Yuki and Laplace had been sacrificed, but they had nothing to do with the victory goal in the first place. Besides, they were the most stubborn people I knew, so there was still the possibility that they might be alive. In that case, now wasn't the time to get sentimental. I still had work to do. It would be an insult to them if I didn't do my job and became consumed with regret. The time that Yuki and Laplace earned was not wasted. The barrier that Yuki and Laplace had put up with all their strength, with Tear risking her life to support it with all her might, had saved Kagali from serious injury. I knew this because I was still observing her condition by isolating her in my stomach. It was actually Seal-san who was doing this, meaning that as a result of Yuki and Laplace's actions, I was able to rescue Tear and Kagali in time. After confirming the safety of the two, I turned my attention to the enemy. One of them was Feldway, and the other one was Footman, or actually not. It was a different person. Leon, who I had been wondering about, was fighting someone unknown. No, her face looked just like Eltan's, but I could sense that she was a different person. She seemed to be very strong just like Eltan, but she also felt different by nature. I could see that she was an ally, so I left the questions of who she was for later. She appeared to be fighting on equal terms with Leon, so I decided to leave this to her and concentrate on the enemy.
I expected you to go after Leon, but you moved slower than expected.
For the time being, I would stir things up. I had no intention of showing it, but I felt sorry that I couldn't save Yuki and the others. I was so angry with myself that I didn't intend to show any mercy.
Who are you? Just who are you to interfere with me, you unpleasant infidel?
Jahil, that's one of the most important figures, Demon Lord Rimuru. You do well to remember that.
The man who appeared to have taken over Footman was named Jahil. He's also the one who launched the attack, so he was definitely a bad guy. 2 enemies, and 2 of us. I would take care of Feldway, and Benimaru would take care of Jahil. However, it looked like
Jahil, was it? I will deal with him.